제가 자라온 그 지역이 많이 시골이라서 네, 좀 친구들이랑 오히려 그냥 활동적인 걸 많이 했던 것 같아요. 제가 좀 축구도 많이 했었어가지고 초등학교 때 그냥 축구 교실 같은 게 있었거든요. 저는 당연히 축구를 너무 좋아했었기 때문에 그때 해보겠다고 했었죠. 좀 어릴 때부터 감당하기 좀 힘들었던 것 같아요, 제 스스로가. 일단 정신적이나 육체적으로나 네, 너무 훈련도 너무 고되고 그래서 포기했던 것 같아요. 카토비체로 갈 때 그때 당시 기세가 많이 좀 좋은 편은 아니었어요. 그래가지고 당연히 우승해야겠다는 생각을 계속 가지고 있었는데 결승하기 전에 제가 트로피를 봤거든요. 근데 너무 멋진 거예요, 트로피가. 전투력이 더 불타올라가지고 좀 쉬운 스코어로 우승할 수 있었던 것 같아요.
You know, there's a great quote about class, it always remains, and form, that's what varies. So maybe his form was down, but this guy was a GSL champion.
남들 세레모니 같은 걸 보거나 할 때 두 손으로 막 들고 그렇게 힘들어 막 하면 이게 좀 멋이 떨어지는 것 같아가지고 근데 한 손으로 최대한 스스로 좀 무거웠는데 친구인 영호가 되게 많은 업적을 이뤘잖아요. 우승도 되게 많이 하고 제가 이상하게 1년에 한 번씩 다 우승을 하더라고요. 그래가지고 영호처럼 우승도 많이 하고 싶다는 생각을 많이 했어요. 그 아버님이 좀 살아 생전에 계실 때 좀 학교를 그만두고 하는 거는 좀 아닌 것 같다고 말씀하셔가지고 고등학교는 졸업을 제 입장에서 해야 되는 상황이었기 때문에 네, 졸업은 하고 준비했었어요.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. I hadn't realized that Zest had finished high school, but believe it or not, a lot of pro gamers just cut out super, super early. Sometimes they take part-time classes while being practice partners, but as they move up in the team and start getting TV appearances, a lot of that has to be cut out.
19살이었죠. 그때 들어가가지고 그때도 많이 스스로 늦었다고 생각해가지고 들어가서 정말 열심히 해야겠다 마음 먹고 들어갔는데 숙소 생활을 하고 얼마 지나지 않아서 그 아버님이 그 병으로 돌아가셨는데 제가 좀 경기하는 모습이나 막 우승하는 모습을 좀 보기 전에 돌아가셔가지고 그때 너무 뭐라 해야 되나 좀 그런 모습을 많이 보여드리고 싶었는데 네. 그 부분이 되게 좀 한이라고 해야 되나? 좀 많이 남는 것 같아요. 항상 결승에 올라가면 부모님들을 많이 모시잖아요, 그 현장에. 그래가지고 그 결승 올라가고 나서 나 좀 우승하고 직후에 좀 많이 생각나는 거. 지금은 솔직히 생각하면서 가족이 최고인 것 같다는 생각도 많이 들고 응원도 많이 해주고 그런 생각이 많이 들어요.
Certainly a very moving movie there from Zest. The WCS Signature Series strikes again, the second video that we've seen today. Definitely a very telling story. Artosis, you're a part of that production. Zest, definitely a very unique story.
Yeah, it's a sad one indeed. His dad not ever really getting to see how successful he's become. And he definitely is one of these best top-of-the-world players. He has just a ton of championships right now and definitely looking to take down BlizzCon.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it earlier on when we watched the previous one with Dark, is these videos have really opened up a lot of these players. I mean, I don't think anybody would have had an idea that's his...
Yeah. I think what's so cool about it is our other opportunity to hear from these guys is an interview in between matches on a stage where they're just like coming off of this incredible event. So you're not going to get that much out of them. Or if you sit down with them even before a tournament, they're like, no, I want to talk about StarCraft. But to kind of pull back the curtain and see what goes on behind, all of a sudden, you know, there's more Zest fans out there. It's like, wow, he's playing for his dead dad that told him he shouldn't be doing what he's doing, and he's like, no, Dad, I'll prove you wrong, kinda, and he is. He's doing a great job.
And something which I really like in the video as well, that I mean, Artosis spoke about it within the video, is that he started so much later than everybody else because he wasn't allowed to be that full-time pro gamer until many other players had had years of experience behind them. You've obviously been a pro gamer yourself over the years, seen players come and go and be in school and not in school. It's quite a disadvantage to have once you start so late.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, but I guess it goes to show that with enough hard work, I guess you can eventually catch up. Like Neeb also, to be honest, like one of our next players here to play.
Yeah.
He was around for some time, but he was still like a student, and then he originally didn't even play Protoss. So put in enough hard work, and you will be rewarded eventually, even though sometimes it might take a lot of time.
Yeah, well, Zest isn't playing next, but he does find himself in Group B with a couple of other players.
A multiple StarCraft champion who has seen the highest of highs, played at the toughest of tournaments, winning 5 championships. Zest enters his group as a large favourite to advance. After joining the WCS circuit so late, True's performance at DreamHack Montreal was nothing but spectacular. Playing with a unique style, he played and won his first tournament, gaining automatic qualification to the Global Finals. Making his first appearance at a Global Finals, Patience is the unlikely contender in Group B. However, he's a player that many underestimate and a player that can always surprise. History was made during October in Korea for Kesper Cup, the first non-Korean in 16 years to win a Korean tournament on Korean soil. It's been a long time since so many eyes were on a single player.
Group B then, a very difficult group by the looks of it for Neeb, but the funny thing, he's done it before against Koreans, and now he finds himself in another group with 3 Koreans, and the story of maybe not just this group, but the entire of the tournament here, Artosis, is can he do it again?
Yeah, and I mean, Neeb is such a strong player that I think a lot of people are expecting him to get through this group, especially considering we have multiple Protoss players here, one of which, Zest, he actually did beat in the Kespa Cup that he ended up winning in Korea, but I don't think it's going to be, not that Kespa Cup was easy for him, but he crushed that. I don't think it is going to be easy like that for him again. You know, he brought a completely new metagame in PvP to Korea, kind of caught everyone off guard and just destroyed them with his excellent mechanics. But now that they know what he's up to, I think that, you know, Patience and Zest are going to fight back very strongly against Neeb.
I think one of the scariest things, though, which is cool, we've seen some foreigners kind of come up and be really good, but what distinguishes them is, was Kespa Cup an anomaly? Was that a one-time thing? Did Neeb go over there, string together some good PvPs and win? He just came back from Brazil, where he had a pretty disappointing top 3 finish, but that was against all non-Koreans. And when I say just came back, by the way, I mean his plane landed like 3 days ago. Can a guy get off that plane from Brazil, sit in a group with 3 top-notch Koreans, and come out a victor? If he does, that's where, for me, that legend starts to build. Because BlizzCon is that tournament where it's like, okay, yeah, you won a DreamHack, awesome. But nobody has come into BlizzCon when it's $200,000 for first place and pushed Koreans aside and made them miss out on that money.
Well,
and if they do that, then that truly is history.
And that's, you know, there's a couple of players like that this tournament, which kind of gets us all excited for it. But looking at Patience now specifically, Todd, is, you know, do you look at him as a contender in this group? A lot of people have kind of pushed the name Patience and don't even really consider him in this tournament at all.
It's kind of hard to, but at the same time, it's kind of hard not to. Like, Patience is probably one of the most underrated players out there. Like, he came to Germany to be a pro player there in Europe. Didn't even really do that well in the EPS, you know, lost a bunch of times to Showtime. And it didn't really look like he was going to be one of those guys that really is going to be very successful in StarCraft 2. Then he goes back to Korea, and I don't know, he hit some switch, and he's become so good. He goes deep in a lot of tournaments. He's super consistent. He played actually less than 2 weeks ago against Neeb in the Shoutcraft Kings. Shout out to TV, shout out to In Control Casted a little bit as well. And he did very well in that series. You know, it was a weird one map, King Sejong Station, and then Neeb was playing like double Stargate stuff, and then Patience just was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go blink, attack, and kill you, and that's what happened. So they've definitely got some experience against each other, and I wouldn't count Patience out here for sure, even though Neeb is extraordinary.
I think one interesting thing with Patience is, he played in the Korean region, he switched to the European region, he played in Europe for a while, he went back to Korea, and then a lot of these players aren't really expected to have that type of success where he can continue to do well, and he has proved himself this year. He's putting good results.
Yeah, he's really rising up, and as Todd said, he is one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated player in the entire world. I'm expecting him to not only make it out of his group, I wouldn't be surprised if he top 4s here. Like, he is a super solid macro player. Like, this guy does not miss a beat. He will get to the army he wants on time. He's not going to really screw up. He makes some questionable decisions sometimes late game with it, but I mean, almost any game you watch, he's ahead of his opponent at some point during it, no matter who it is, whether it be Zess, Neeb, or otherwise.
Actually, it's interesting you say top 4, because Starlink Season 1, he made top 4, Season 2 as well, like only losing to, I think it was Stats and then Solar, so definitely consistent with his top 4s already.
And of course, you've got Neeb, who...
Neeblet,
sorry, excuse me.
I will defend you, Neeblet.
Adjusting to that. I mean, what else really can we say about this guy? The whole tournament, the focus seemingly is on him and how well he can do.
An absolute legend. He's already done so much, and I'm just greedy. I want to build on that legend for him. He goes into Korea, wins a tournament against some of the best people we're talking about, even Zest in this group itself. But it's not just that tournament. He's been top 4 all year long. He's just really emerged as a consistent, top-notch player. They can do it against Koreans and non-Koreans alike. But I got to go to their comments. I love this first match against Patience, one of the most underrated, but also one of the hardest working players. Todd made the point earlier with Zest, but I see it with Patience too. All he wants to do is practice, and the results are showing.
So how are we thinking about this first matchup then? Protoss versus Protoss. We've seen how strong Neeb has been in this matchup. You've kind of voiced out how Patience can perform. Is this a close series?
Yeah, I think it is a close series, and I think it's kind of interesting the way they line up, because I think Patience is probably going to want to go late game where Neeb feels very comfortable. Yeah. And Patience is no slouch there, so I think it's going to be a close one. Maybe, I mean, with how well Neeb played at Kespa Cup, I wouldn't fault anyone for saying he has a little bit of an advantage. But I think Patience is going to come in here in beast mode and have a really great tournament. I think this is going to be a big breakout for him where he starts to gain a lot more fans like we've seen from Classic the last couple of years here. I think he's the Classic this year.
Well, and what are your thoughts here, Todd?
I think like when you play against Neeb, if you take it a little bit too slow, if you're not decisive, you go into 4 or 5 bases, he's just too mechanically sound. People that tried that, they lost to him all at Kespa Cup. So Patience, his style should be very good against Neeb. But none of that matters because I'm way too biased to predict that Neeb's going to lose. So Neeb's going to take it 2-0.
Okay, well, you can see behind it looks like Patience not quite ready to play. Quite a few people around him, actually. 5 or 6 people. So we do have a couple more minutes here. Is there anything else you'd like to mention on this matchup?
Yeah, I just want to kind of set the setting for a lot of people because I feel like one of the reasons, or part of the reason I really love BlizzCon is for a lot of other tournaments, the Koreans are flying in like the day before, they're kind of rushing in, they're like, this is a big deal, but not the biggest of deals. Nope, these guys have been here for close to a week. They've thought nothing else about this except for these matchups. Patience knows Neeblet. There's no way to cut that otherwise. He is not a replacement. He is not some underrated foreigner. He is the real deal. Yeah. Patience has been studying him in and out, and Neeblet's been doing the same. So I really like the idea of this tournament being 2 players in optimal condition, wanting to win a chunk of $500,000. You're going to see the best of the best clash. And I mean, I know that's like a cool thing for BlizzCon at whole, but like for these 2 players specifically, Patience, I can't really underrate this. I know like when people think Koreans, the stereotype is, well, they all work really hard. I think that's mostly true, but Patience like distinguishes himself amongst the hard workers. And that means he doesn't actually have a life except for StarCraft. And in this case, if you're going to make a $250,000, then I guess you put your work in the right place.
That kind of completes an all-round quite impressive group, really, because Zest is in the group, and I know you're a big fan of Zest. And then we've got True with this very dynamic and unique style, who's throwing in a completely different mix-up. It's rather an interesting one, this one. A lot more unpredictable, perhaps.
Yeah, this is a super hard group to predict. Like, coming off of the high of Kespa Cup and Neeb's ridiculous, like, 11-1 run in PvP, a lot of people are just saying, okay, Neeb definitely, and then who knows, maybe Zest. But I think that really any 2 players can absolutely make it out of this group more so than any other. It's really the kind of unpredictable group overall.
True's got that advantage of being the only Zerg in a group of 3 other Protosses. And anytime you see that dynamic, a lot of times, I mean, of course, his opponent, well, Zest is only working on PvP, or only worked on PvZ to get ready for this. But other than him, I wouldn't be too surprised if there was more of a PvP focus, which gives him a little bit of that underdog advantage, I would
He
say.
looked very good in Montreal against Protoss. I think he beat Hearthstone very handedly, so
Yeah.
it's going to be good to see that. Familiarity against Neeb is very important, and Apollo touched on it. Like, these players, they are really starting to be a lot more familiar with it, so it's going to be cool to see if he's adjusting, maybe trying to be a little bit more unpredictable. And Zest is like the cliche, by the way. It's like the, you know, the handsome Korean guy that's like really good at StarCraft as well, and like he just owns it. You know, like last night I was catching a workout with Koka in the gym, and like who shows up out of nowhere? Zest. We're like, yes, we're gonna work out next to Zest. Go
Can you
straight
lift more
into
weight than you?
leg day.
Oh, wow.
When they make
And
a, when they
he
make a
doesn't skip
StarCraft movie,
anything.
okay, we've had our Warcraft movie. They did a great job. When they make a StarCraft movie and they need someone to play a Korean pro gamer, they're gonna be like, Zest, we need you to do it, and everyone's gonna be like, that's so unrealistic. And then we'll be like, no, he's actually a pro gamer, you idiot. And it's like, wow. It's gonna be amazing.
Results then, or predictions, should I say? Where are we going with this one?
No,
We're very
results,
close
tell
to
us.
starting now.
Like I said, I think my bias is too strong on this one. I think Neeb he's just so good anyway. Neeb 2-0.
Wow.
Look, I want to see the story of Neeb continue. I want to see him kind of like cement himself, not just as like, oh, I'm the best foreigner or something like that, but I want to see him cement himself as one of the top in the world. And I think if he gets out of this group, he absolutely does that. But I am feeling Patience victory here, maybe a 2-1. I think it's going to be a close series, and I wouldn't be surprised if Neeb takes it, but I think that the underratedness of Patience cannot be overstated.
I'm riding that hype train. I do agree with everything Dan said, and I feel like it's a cool analysis because I think a lot of people on paper would look at this and be like, Patience, I vaguely remember him from a DreamHack like 2 or 3 years ago. He's done some stuff in Korea, but that some stuff in Korea is in a sea of people that are only fighting in Korea, and he's still emerged as one of the names that can win over there, which is very scary. That being said, I'm going to ride the hype train, and I'm hoping that Neeb showed up to this tournament with the expectation of the world on his shoulders, and he delivers, because I think that would be a really cool story. Really cool story.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Patience has taken his jacket off, which means it's almost game time. We're going to take this quick break, and when we come back, it's time for the first match of Group B.
Heroes of the Storm. Prepare for Heroes Brawl, the new game mode that breaks all the rules. Rated T for teen. The reviews are in, and the critics agree. Overwatch is a perfect 10.
Psst, what are you looking at?
It's time to pick a side.
Overwatch. Play it now on PC and console. Rated T for teen.
The StarCraft 2
Welcome
WCS
back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series Global Playoffs here in Burbank, California. I'm Nathanius. How you doing, Kev?
I'm doing so good. I mean, I think these first two series of the day were fun. Now we're getting ready for some PvP, and we'll finally get to see Neeb. I mean, I saw quite a bit of Neeb just last weekend, spent a lot of time with him in Brazil, and wasn't the performance that I think a lot of people expected him, but you can't really expect a guy just because he won one tournament that he's going to win everything from now on. You know, there's still a lot of other good players in the foreign scene, and winning Casper Cup doesn't mean you'll win every single tournament. However, as Jeff said as well, this is the big one. This is the one that truly counts, and, you know, like Artosa said, this is his time to perhaps cement himself as one of the absolute best.
I think many Neeb fans, myself included, look at this tournament, we look at the results he's had since Casper Cup, and we say, we hope he's just been preparing everything for BlizzCon, you know. He's got so many people cheering him on. He's really captured, I'd say, you know, the heart of the foreign scene this year, and it's been such an awesome story to follow. We've been talking him up since the very beginning of the year. We thought he was going to, well, I thought he was going to hit a home run in the first tournament that he was going to go into. We didn't quite see those results come out for him in events like Leipzig, but over the course of the year, he has just gone up and up and up.
I mean, even more of a fun fact is one of the very first games that we ever cast together, Nate, all the way back in 2014, the beginning of 2014. There was a young, aspiring Terran player from America called Neeb in the same group as Pold. We casted him back then. He played great, even took a map off Pold in TVT, and we're like, man, if this young guy keeps playing, he's probably going to be really good. And well, he didn't just keep playing, he switched to Protoss. Best thing ever, Nate.
Well, he left my team and went for yours, and he's had a lot more success with that, so definitely can't blame the guy. It's been an amazing year for him. He's had a lot of help, a lot of support from the foreign StarCraft scene, as well as picking up a new sponsor that we don't really see too much of, so it's been really cool for him. Patience has had a very interesting story as well. When I think of Patience, it's hard not to go back to that dream hack that In Control mentioned over on the analysis couch, where he kind of came in right into that blink era was kind of happening in StarCraft 2, and he blinked his way pretty deep through a dream hack final, taking out some big players, Acer Innovation, Acer MMA back in those days, and he was kind of out of nowhere, but he's really, balanced out the kind of strategies that we expect to see from him. He can play this game anyway.
Yep, I really like that you bring that up, because Patience is one of the most underrated players in this tournament. Everyone on the couch said that, and even other pro gamers said that as well. I think Scarlett told me last weekend that she also believes that he's one of the absolute most underrated players in the world, and that's mostly because Patience spent a lot of time in Europe, and back then he really wasn't that dominant. Like, of course he was a good player, but he was not somebody they would be terrified of if you faced him in the ladder. And in the tournament, other than that one DreamHack you just mentioned, Patient never really had the success that a lot of the other Koreans had that stayed in Europe. So in the mind of a lot of StarCraft fans out there, and even some of the players back then, Patience was always just like, he's alright, but if you're really good, if you're in shape, you should be able to take care of Patience. But this year we've just seen a whole new Patience. He's better than ever. It's going to be a great series, but Neeb's PvP record is ridiculous, not just because of Casper Cup, but before he lost that recent best of one that he did lose against Patience, as Todd mentioned, in Shoutcraft. I think he won like 14 or 15 series in a row, it's ridiculous, a lot of those being best of 3 or best of 5. Like, before he lost that one map against Patience, the last player that defeated him was Puck, and that's months ago, like that's crazy.
Yeah, I think back to those matchups. He's had some pretty crazy games in a lot of these online qualifiers, because for Neeb, a lot of that story has also been turning his online results from the last year into offline results. Going all the way back to those first qualifiers for Katowice, for DreamHack. We'd be like, oh man, he actually beat Hydra in the qualifier to get here, or he beat Pol. Some of his games were absolutely insane, and I had the pleasure of commentating those. I was blown away by how good he was, and we didn't get to see him translate those out. We didn't get to see him bring that heat to the tournaments at the very start, but he's just gotten better and better as the year has gone on, and he's turned those online performances into real championships at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's very nice for Neeb that the meta has shifted a little bit again in PvP. It started off with Blinkstock, a Disruptor, and then eventually people were like, hey, what if we just attack PvP how to play with Archons, Immortals, and a lot of adepts, like crazy amount of adepts. Like, we'll go up to 3 bases, but we don't actually make more than 44 or 46 probes, and we'll just go about it and see if we can end the game. And I feel that was kind of a random phase in PvP, but right now, slowly but steady, and especially I would say in the last month, it has really shifted back a lot back to those disruptors, and Neeb just seems to be incredibly good with them, seems to be very comfortable controlling that unit, so it is a good meta shift for him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree any more. Neeb has not only been very good with disruptors in PvP, he's been one of the players that has used them consistently throughout all 3 matchups all year long. If you got to see his games, he's one of the few guys busting out disruptors against Terran very early on. Disruptor drops are one of the things that he has made look amazing, and many Terrans have gotten free points off of because it is so hard to do those in normal games. But even in a lot of his qualifier series against Hydra, I can recall at least 3 games off the top of my head where he was able to take game-winning pushes off of disruptor hits. And if that is something that he can bring to the table here, it's going to be extremely useful. We are going to go to another quick break, guys, while we get everything sorted out. We'll be bringing you this next match as soon as we can. You're watching the World Championship Series.
is one of the coolest things you're ever going to see in your life.
We cannot wait to share with you guys what we have in store.
Welcome to BlizzCon, boys.
For Azeroth! We're exploring a lot of new locations. We invented some brand new characters.
The world could always use more heroes.
We retake our homeworld.
When we first did BlizzCon back in 2005, we had no idea what to expect.
Are we ready to begin the costume contest?
It is amazing to feel part of this thing.
How'd you guys feel about today? You excited?
It's so much more than a game in a box.
We have so much to show you here today.
It's just all fun and games.
Have fun this weekend. Take care of each other.
Have a great BlizzCon!
The reviews are in, and the critics agree. Overwatch is a perfect 10.
Psst, what are you looking at?
It's time to pick a side.
Overwatch. Play it now on PC and console. Rated T for teen.
Heroes of the Storm. Play free and experience the new StarCraft-themed battlegrounds. Rated T for teen.
See the full animated short at playoverwatch.com.
The StarCraft II WCS Global Finals is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully to get into our next match here at the World Championship Series here in Burbank, California, as we continue through the round of 16 groups before we go to BlizzCon.
The moment so many of you have been waiting for. Neeblet is going to play his first game of the tournament. I think that's the first time I called him Neeblet. I'm gonna get used to this one. It's definitely gonna be Neeb a couple of times, Nate, forgive me.
You know, if you've been following him around, you know, he's had that Neeblet here and there.
Yeah, that's true.
He's wanted to embrace his roots, as it were. But I guess for some people it's going to be, you know, you gotta try. But very interested to see where this one goes. We have the lobby set up. We have everything ready to rock and roll. So we should be getting into this one very shortly. Like we were talking about, he's going up against Patience, who has been very strong. And as the guys on the couch were also stating, underrated and not talked about a whole lot. And I think that that's something that this tournament also helps to provide, is we brought that stage out. This is where you get the exposure. This is where everybody gets to see what he's really capable of, because I feel like a lot of people probably hold that old opinion since he hasn't been as explosive of a personality maybe as much as he was a player. So you think about the old days, think about cheesy Patience, blink all in Patience, eliminated your favorite player innovation Patience. At least as a salty Terran, that's where I would go
Nate,
with
you're
it.
still not over it, are you?
No,
Like,
we never forget.
Now both players are a little bit confused about what was supposed to be the first map. I think we've got it all figured out. The players apparently thought that King Sejong was going to be the first map, so they wanted to rehost, and they rehosted, and the admin is like, no, it's really Galactic, guys. Like, I've got it on paper, you guys agreed on this. So I believe now we're almost good to go. First map Galactic, second map King Sejong, or... No, now we're gonna play Frost. Okay. That works as well. Either way, I think this is one series where if you just look at the most recent result, you know, you do simple, basic math, and you're like, all right, well, Neeb took care of Trap 4-0. Trap beat Patience 3-1. This must mean that Neeb will beat Trap.
Oh boy.
But this is one of these things that it just doesn't work like that in StarCraft. Every day is different, and the styles are always so different as well.
What was it we were just talking about in the last group? Was it, oh, you know, Snoot beat Neeb and Neeb beat this guy, so Snoot should be able to destroy him, right? But in StarCraft, it's always a little more complicated than that. Performance varies day to day. And one thing I also think... Yeah, exactly. And I also think it's important to note that you know, Neeb was also traveling, playing in other events very, very recently prior to coming here to play in California.
Probably still feels alright about that tournament, as he did qualify for the grand finals of WESG, which are going to be happening later this year or next year. That's obviously what he went for. He picked up some money, had some, you know, some fun times down the road. And even though it can be a distraction, because obviously Brazil is very far away, especially Sao Paulo, it's a long journey. He had a couple days to recover, and at least it took some of the immense pressure I almost feel that he had on his shoulders off for this tournament, because a lot of people looked at Neeb after he won Casper Cup as Neeb the invincible. Neeb is not going to drop a map, you know, Neeb is going to go straight through the semifinals. And then suddenly we saw in Sao Paulo that it's not going to be all that easy. A close series against Calazur, lost against Scarlet in what was sort of a close series, yet in the end it was a 3-1 victory, and you could say that 1 or 2 games were pretty decisive anyway. So it took some of the pressure off, but needless to say, we still have high hopes for this young man.
Yeah, I think like I was saying earlier, a lot of Neeb fans probably feel the same way I do, which is you don't look at that in-between tournament as being the end-all, be-all for him. The biggest moment of the year for Neeb is going to be right here, starting now. We are loading into King Sejong Station to kick off Group B with Neeblet versus Patience.
It's all good, Nate. It's all good. We're all going to struggle with that one.
Beautiful American flag, Roddy, as we are loaded in the top left position of King Sejong Station. Representing Ting, he is Neeblet.
Looks focused, looks ready. Of course, his opponent, right bottom side of the map, spawning as the blue Protoss on King Sejong. It's the one and only Patience. Patience definitely ready to make a big statement here, wants to get rid of, you know, being underrated, wants to get rid of that title as like, yeah, he's a good Protoss, but there are better players out there. It's like, no, I mean, if you end up winning BlizzCon here, you know, you go through the round of 16, you make it to the big show, and you perform there as well, people will never look at you again as like, oh yeah, tough guy to have in your group, but should be doable on a good day.
And you are playing for the privilege to be on that beautiful stage at BlizzCon, to be in the eyes of the world for StarCraft 2. And if you are Neeblet, a lot of people are very, very much so looking forward to having an American up there on the stage. We've had very good European players. We've had people make it there. But for America, well, we've been waiting a long time, Roddy.
Yeah, I know, Nate, I know. Double gate openings are nothing crazy. It's something that's very, very common in PvP. Anything but a double gate would very much so surprise me or even shock me. Now, what I'm interested about is what is going to be the opening. I almost have the feeling that Patience maybe wants to open up with the depths because of the positioning of his gateways. And I think that Neeb is going to open up with Stalkers and then eventually keep a probe there near the ramp that in case case he would go up against Adepts, make sure those Adepts don't sneak by. Because if you open up with 4 Stalkers, the Mothership Core is often a little later, unless you make it early as well, but then you hurt your own economy. And if your opponent would open up with Adepts and they squeeze by, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So it's incredibly important, early game already, that Neeb is going to be on point with the probe that's going to be protecting this ramp where he could potentially drop a pylon.
All right, well, it is going to be those 2 Stalkers, as you mentioned, for Neeblet. Patience, alternating that Chrono Boost between his gateways to get those Adepts out, and also that Mothership Core for Neeblet. So if you're Neeblet in this position against the Adepts, you just want to chill, stay home, be on the lookout if you need to drop that pylon to block the ramp for a shade.
But most likely he'll send out his Stalkers a tiny bit because you kind of know where the shades finish up. But this is where a lot of mind games come into play. We see a Stargate go down for Patience. I like this a lot. I'm a big fan of the Stargate myself, whether it's Oracle or Phoenixes. I think both can be incredibly good in PvP. But here come these Stalkers. The Stalkers are going to high-five these Adepts already. They're still on cooldown, so he's going to be able to shade one more time. And now it's very important that Neeb is on the money with that probe, which he's indeed, you know, well, he should be. I think it's even going to be a cancel. I don't think. Oh, no, he lets it finish.
Okay,
right.
so they both teleport in. They're going to take off some of the shields from that Stalker. These Adepts getting rid of most of them. There's the pylon block to make sure that the Adepts cannot come through. With 2 more Stalkers finishing up, they really can't do too much else. And this Stalker on the right side is going to continue to chase and deal a little bit of hit point damage to that Adept. Now, this Mothership Core is coming in, Kev, but that Stargate is on. It's doing work now. We have that Oracle on the way.
Yep. Photon Overcharge could prevent this Mothership Core from scouting it, but I think that Patience is incredibly worried that he's going to need that Photon Overcharge later on, but he still has to use it eventually. And I mean, looking at it, he may have well could have used it before, and it could have been, unless he was worried that the Mothership Core would go out of range. Either way, it's a good scout for Neeb. That's the most important thing.
So with the information that he has now, knowing that it should be the Oracle coming out, it was very close to finishing up, so an unlikely event that he would cancel it. He just keeps his Stalker at home. What is it, like 3 per mineral line and a pylon maybe at the natural just to make sure nothing weird happens?
Yeah, I even think for now Stalkers maybe in the natural and then 1 or 2 Stalkers in the main, and Photon Overcharge can cover one of the other mineral lines. But yeah, he's going to split them up for now. 3 Stalkers is fine, but if you only have 3 Stalkers, then the Oracle could fly in, and if there are plenty of probes in the natural, you got to be a little bit careful, because against 3 Stalkers, an Oracle can actually fly in, pick off 3 workers, and still get out of there without dying.
All right, well, Oracle's going to come in, see the Stalkers, and just tag that Revelation on Neeblet's base, so can keep track of everything. Twilight Council, not a shocker in this scenario with this many Stalkers. It's likely to be for that blink. A Void Ray on the way for Patience back home, though, as he comes in and snaps up a few probes.
Wow, that's actually really good, because this is something that Neeb obviously did not expect, because the Revelation just got dropped, and normally you don't have that much energy. But Patience is like, I've got 30 energy, you know, 25 to activate my beam. 5 energy is enough to pick off 3 workers here, and that's a very nice pick-off, especially because it seems like Patience wants to get Immortals out as quickly as possible, and Void Rays as well. Now, I truly wonder if we're going to see more than just 1 Void Ray. Like, Void Ray Immortal is kind of this build that you see in North American Master League. Well, it's actually happening.
Yeah.
They see another Void Ray. Like, this army is the type of army that's incredibly immobile. It's really not good in defending multiple locations at once, but it packs one hell of a punch. Like, it walks across the map, and if you just stand there and you try to trade against that army, you're gonna have a bad time, because the damage output of Immortal Void Ray against Stalkers, no matter how good your micro is, Nate, it's undoable.
Yeah, once that prismatic alignment is activated for the Void Ray, it is the ultimate stand and deliver unit against Stalker-based compositions like you've mentioned. War Prism is on the way as well, so Patience looking to try to get some work done here as Blink is finishing for Neeblet. Neeblet's getting a Forge, taking his extra gas, getting probes, Observer. Should he be just pumping out units right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Neeb is truly aware that this is happening. He hasn't scouted in a while. He's going to move out now with the Stalkers, because this is normally what you want to do. You want to pick off units that are by themselves in the middle of the map. He's going to run into the Void Ray and the Immortal now. Now Neeb exactly knows what's going on. I think an extra pylon or 2 in the natural is absolutely mandatory here. There you go.
Right, to be able to overcharge and help cover his base.
Because, I mean, Immortals and Void Rays, they kill buildings incredibly quick as well. I think Neeb is quite worried. 41 army supply against 43, and obviously Patience is going to wait for that second Immortal. He's going to wait for that second Void Ray, but he's also transitioning at home. He's still macroing, Nate.
Yeah, he's adding on 3 more gateways that Twilight Council just finished up for him, so he can move into whatever other upgrade he wants to get. It will be Blink, and +1 attack, as well as Immortals are coming out for Neeblet. And I feel like as time goes by, his ability to deal with the Void Rays should just increase enough. And with the Immortal support and Photon Overcharge, I don't think that Patience can break this too easily.
It almost seems like this is a PvZ tactic out of Patience, where you walk across the map and you scare your opponent and hope that they won't really build any workers, or, you know, that the drones turn into units. But obviously PvP works out a little different. So I'm a tiny bit surprised that he made 2 Void Rays, that he
Yeah.
runs across the map. He scares Neeb, but he doesn't commit. And you can say like, well, he's still 3 workers ahead. You know, he's got his own blink on the way.
You know? Yeah, it feels like Neeblet wasn't really too phased by that. The Sword Prism can still run around. He still has the Oracle to threaten. There are 4 Adepts inside of this Prism, so let's see what he can get done. Most everything is at the front of the natural. Neeb is going to see this. He has a probe towards his 3rd base, as well as Patience has begun his 3rd. There's the Stalker blink for Neeblet. Revelation, of course, makes it very difficult to catch Patience off guard.
Yeah, I still prefer to have a whole bunch of Stalkers a little bit later on. As good as Void Rays are, I feel you get in that awkward scenario where your opponent has more Stalkers, so more mobility, and you're going to be running back and forth as the immortal Void Ray player.
Right.
And then it's just a matter of time before one unit gets picked off and another unit gets picked off, and you kind of give map control to your opponent, as your army is incredibly good if it stands in one place. But you know, Immortal Void Ray is not the army that is very good to run from the left side to the top side to defend something in the main.
As we have a nice solid mid-game here, fairly even. Our observer showing us that income difference is pretty tight. So it's going to come down, at least at this point, to where those units get positioned. We have disruptors on the way for Patience now, and that robotics base coming in for Neeblet. It's not too far behind, but if they both continue to just crank those out without going for a second robotics facility, that'll just be about a disruptor, maybe 2 advantage for Patience based on when Neeblet starts his.
Yeah, it should never be more than 2. If it's more than 2, then I think that Neeb is going to be in a little bit of trouble, no matter the fact that he will have more Stalkers. One Adept's going to make his way across the map. We'll spot this army of Patience moving out again. I mean, this so far is a pretty high-level PvP where not a whole lot has happened yet, but it's absolutely not been boring, because both players have been looking for openings, they just haven't really found them.
Now, we had Patience playing chicken with Neeblet on that natural expansion a bit earlier, and now he's getting ready to try again. I mean, he's had full vision of Neeblet's army pretty much this entire game with the use of that Revelation. There's the Guardian Shield. Patience ready to go for it. Does get his back units force fielded off. The Disruptor doesn't get a big hit. He should be able to get a few of these Stalkers. That blink is available, and he's going to push him back just a bit. At the same time, Adept's making their way into the 3rd base, picking off 6 probes. Now the Revelation's worn off. He catches the Immortals. He could get the Disruptor, but he's splitting his army. Some of these units might be able to get away. He does get the Disruptor, and finally cleans up the Adepts in his 3rd.
Yeah, still a little bit worried for Patience. How is he going to get home? Well, actually, that defensive blink of Neeb is going to allow Patience to get home, and I think Patience is going to be very, very happy with the fact that Neeb was so occupied in dealing with those Adepts. Ooh, tries to get a nice shot off. Connects with one Immortal, but doesn't kill anything.
Yep, just takes the shields off of that Immortal and does a bit of health damage to it, but nothing lost just yet. Stalkers are going to blink straight forward. There's the hot pickup on that Warp Prism, keeping that Disruptor safe. And Neeblet, he's got his 3rd base set up. Worker count-wise, everything is still very close.
I think one thing that's very nice for Neeb is not the fact that he has a 1 worker advantage, or that they're kind of even in army supply now. He's ahead in upgrades, you know, +2 is finishing up, and that's incredibly big. Like +2 for Immortal, Stalkers, Archons eventually is massive. But what's more important in a way is that he picked up that Oracle, because Oracle is incredibly...
That Revelation, yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, he had vision of Neeblet's everything for most of the game. And Patience is actually going to make another Oracle. He's saying, I don't want to lose that, as Neeblet takes the West Tower and makes his way towards that 4th base of Patience, now under construction.
Yep, and I like this by Neeblet a lot. You know, he immediately starts taking a little bit of map control by taking control of that Zelnaga Watchtower, and at the same time he's like, you're going up to 4 bases. I believe this has been kind of an even game. A couple of Adepts sneak by and gonna get a few more worker kills. Slowly but steady, I really feel that we're starting to see why Neeb is so incredibly good in this matchup. Just a few small things going his way now. Got a little bit too excited with one of his own disruptors, I guess.
He's looking to start throwing out those Purification Novas. The army is to the left, so he's going to whip on that one. The Observer giving that vision. He's going to throw that shot. Neeblet bouncing out of the way just in time. And there's the Oracle, so we do have the possibility that Revelation tagged this army.
Yeah, I think Neeb should go back. I mean, he's going up to 4 bases, but he doesn't have a Warp Prism, so obviously how long can you stay on the other side of the map in a PvP without a way to reinforce your army? Well, the answer is not very long. And actually, Patience's army is quite a bit bigger now. Goes forward, will connect with both.
He gets all the Disruptors of Patience, losing that AoE ability to knock this army down, and possibly going to continue to push forward here. He still has the Immortals to anchor this force. The Void Ray being chased down by the Stalkers as Neeblet barely going to step back just in time to avoid that Disruptor shot 4 Adepts are poking away at that 4th Nexus, but they haven't forced a cancellation on it.
He tried to kill both Disruptors as one Disruptor does connect with one of these Immortals of Neeb, but Neeb's army definitely looking pretty powerful now. If Neeb had a Prism, this would be incredibly bad for Patience, but it might still be, Nate.
Yeah, he has another Disruptor coming down from the natural expansion. He focuses the one at the 3rd. He's going to throw out the Purification Nova. He completely whiffs on it. Neeblet steps back just in time, and it's just Stalkers versus Stalkers and Immortals, but he has to keep in mind that that 4th base is still going up for Patience. If he trades out his army here, he's going to give him an opportunity to climb back in. He's going to make his way back towards the 4th. He's going to get his Disruptor sniped, though. Patience blinking right on top of it. The Disruptor coming in. He's got a Disruptor behind Patience's arm. He's going to throw it right on the Stalkers. Barely snipes it in time, but that 4th base still under pressure.
Yeah, some 6 snipes there by Patience, but he's still pretty outnumbered. He's going to bring in his Oracle as well. Gets the last Immortal too, so it's just a couple of Stalkers, but there are a lot of very powerful units on the other side of the map for Neeb. Another Disruptor coming in as well, trying to bait out the Blink, but the reinforcements are on the way. Neeb still 25-30 supply ahead. Needless to say, that one Disruptor at the bottom of this ramp, I'm not sure if even both shot, but absolutely one shot just changed everything. Patience tried to kill both Disruptors at once. Full volley at the first one, full volley at the second one, but he didn't kill them in time, and that's why they did so much damage.
And really insane build-up here for Neeblet. He's going to blink right and snipes the Disruptor, and he's just trying to fight numbers versus numbers. Disruptor shot comes from the high ground. He's going to kill both of Neeblet's Disruptors. He still has that vision from the Watchtower, but without the Disruptors, breaking this position is not going to be easy.
I mean, Neeb would love to have a Prism, but obviously it's very important to crank out those Disruptors as well, so he's producing them 2 at a time, but I think it's very hard to finish a PvP if you don't have a Prism, but I guess at the same time he really doesn't want to fall behind at the Disruptor count. But the longer he waits, the more that Patience will get back into this game. I mean, I believe there's still an upgrade advantage, correct? Yeah, it's +3 against +2.
Yeah, Neeblet has that +3 attack. We also have a Stargate coming in for Neeblet with charge. One of those Disruptors does get snagged. He throws out another one. Okay, takes out one of Patience's. His army's on the right side, and both of them focusing down each other's Disruptors. Neither able to land the shots on the army, but Patience is caught off to the right, and with this concave of Stalkers, Neeblet is getting a pretty favorable trade, continuing to increase in that supply. Focuses down Patience's last Disruptor on the right, and he is running for the hills.
Yep, he's gonna have to blink back into his own main base. He's still down when it comes to Disruptors. It's 4 against 2 now. Neeb even wiping in a couple of Zealots.
He has charge on the way, but not ready yet.
Yeah, charge halfway done. I mean, in a way, it's very smart. Like, obviously, it's hard to attack without a Prism, but this way, at least, he makes sure that he never falls behind on those important robotic facility units. And Neeb just played an excellent mid to mid-late game, which all, of course, was because of that one Disruptor shot. But ever since then, I really feel like he's been in control of this game.
Yeah, Neeblet definitely known for that Disruptor play, and he's going to try to continue to pressure this 4th using his Disruptors. The Stalkers are going to blink right in, able to deny the Purification Nova, throws out another one and whiffs. So just the trading of that Blink Stalker Disruptor army, and Patience sees an opportunity to take a couple of extra Stalkers on the way out.
I mean, one issue here is that Neeb is having a lot of units on the other side of the map. There are a couple of Stalkers that were just chilling. He had all these Zealots wiped in, so even though Neeb was 30-40 supply ahead, he's not fighting with that extra supply and then fighting without any reinforcements. He is taking some bad fights, but he's still ahead. He had a superior economy for quite some time. Gonna end up losing one more Disruptor. Zealots are incredibly good, but you have to be careful. They like to clump up when they charge in. One Disruptor on the high ground. Neeb knows about it and blinks. Kills it immediately.
That Stalker watching for the 5th base gives that vision for him to jump up there. Throws at the Purification Nova, is going to be able to take out one of Patience's Disruptors. And as he continues to push forward, he has the vision from the Revelation from the Watchtower. He goes in again, denies that Disruptor shot, and with charge being done, these Zealots can get right on top of these forces, making it more difficult to reposition, more difficult to micro, and also allowing them to get right on top of that probe line. Throws another Disruptor shot, gets a huge volley on Patience's Stalkers, and GG is going to be called.
Wow, sick game, sick first PvP of the tournament, probably the first of many. Neeb definitely having kind of a rough start, I feel. He was just defending, he couldn't really do much. Patience knew exactly what was going on the other side of the map. But Neeb's Disruptors just completely changed this game.
It was beautiful, that engage in the middle of the map. And it's such a nerve-wracking thing. As you mentioned, he doesn't have the War Prism. There's no way to reinforce his army instantly to help deal with this. And then Patience, with the defender's advantage, is going to constantly be bolstering, building that army up. And then, boom, just that one Disruptor shot, taking out 4 of Patience's. That's a slam dunk play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, PvP is right now the matchup where you truly have to be super, super decisive. You can never second guess yourself. And if you want to go for a kill, if you just stand there and you know that if you're like going to be 1 or 2 seconds late, you lose all your units, you better be damn sure that you make the correct call. A lot of the Stalkers from the high ground were shooting at those Disruptors on the low ground, but you saw what happened. Full volley on one Disruptor, but he was missing 1 or 2 Stalkers. He didn't have enough DPS, and then he switched targets because Patience was being greedy. He tried to get both, and in the end, well, he ended up losing all his own Disruptors.
Yep, definitely a good start, and just going back, I mean, that game did start off, as you said, with quite a bit of tension there. Patience really brought what could have been a very large 2-base, all-in big push of sorts to Neeblet, but he didn't. Not only did he have a good setup to defend, but he didn't overcommit to the defense so much. We talked about he was still adding his extra gases. He got his Forge and his +1 much earlier, and he was also building probes. He was doing all of those while Patience is pushing Void Rays and Immortals at his front door.
I love how you highlight that, because that was a pretty brilliant judgment call there by Neeb. He sees an army of like 2 Immortals, 2 Void Rays run across the map, a Prism there as well. And he's like, I don't believe you're actually going to do this. I've got Photon Overcharge, I'm feeling pretty safe here, let's get my Forge. And that actually allowed him to have an upgrade advantage throughout the entirety of the game. So very big call there, not something we see directly in the game. But if you think back about it, brilliant call by Neeb to do that. Well, it's a very, it's one that requires a lot of courage, let's put it like that.
Yeah, and that is something that Neeblet seems to have a good deal of, and especially in this PvP matchup, seems to be extremely strong in it. Galactic Process looks to be the second map. Hopefully you guys at home aren't enjoying this as we approach high noon in the United States of America, or at least the West Coast, Roddy.
I don't think that tournament has started yet, though.
Not quite yet. But that's I know there's a lot of very passionate American StarCraft fans that have been extremely hyped to see Neeblet, and so far in this series, he has delivered. As we load into Game 2, let's see if he can keep it up.
This time it will be Galactic for real. Both players were already in the lobby twice to play on this map. I wonder what's going through Patience's mind right now, because I feel like he had a decent start. He did a phenomenal job in keeping the Oracle alive, but in the end it was still Neeb closing out game number 1.
Yes, it was. We are loaded in. We're ready to kick off game number 2 in the northeast position of Galactic Process. He's the red Protoss representing the USA and Ting. He's Neeblet. A very solid start in game number 1.
Over here on the left bottom side, we're looking at the main base of our blue Protoss. It's of course Patience from Korea.
And I love that Neeblet took that picture with the US flag draped over him. He knows there are many bald eagles watching over him as he carries the American flag for StarCraft forward.
Now we saw Patience open up with double Adept in that previous game, and it's safe to say that Neeb's defense was excellent against it, didn't allow them in, didn't really take any damage, and even though early Adepts are good, if you have an early Stalker advantage, it's just a little bit better because it's going to keep you safe against any sort of Stargate play. Like if Neeb would have opened up with 2 Adepts as well, he would have had 2 Stalkers less, and then there is a good chance that the Oracle has an easier time finding an opening and getting a few more worker skills.
Yeah, it's, I mean, as a Terran player, when you hear Protoss talk about PvP, a lot of it comes down to being very careful with not being caught off guard by the tech choice your opponent goes for after the cybernetics core, whether it's, a big blink push or an Oracle out of nowhere, or even just like Phoenix that deal with your preparation against an Oracle or something of that sort. So it always feels a bit scary when I try to play it, but it's crazy to see how well these guys adjust to each other's movements so fluidly.
Yeah, I'm kind of expecting Patience to go for Stalkers as well. Galactic is a tiny bit longer than King Sejong, and if you're not able to do any damage with your Adepts on King Sejong, how likely is it that you'll find an opening on Galactic? I mean, maybe it will be. Maybe he just loves the double Adept opening to have some sort of a map presence, but actually it's going to be Adepts on both sides, even for Neeb. All right.
So how does this usually end up? Do they just trade out? Do they throw the Adepts into each other's bases? Do the Adepts try to fight each other? Or?
I mean, every player is different, Nate. It's very hard to say. However they feel, some people prefer to keep the Adepts on their own side of the map and then just use the Adepts to defend. But some people are like, I have faith in my multitasking. I'll defend against your Adepts while I find an opening with my Adepts on the other side of the map.
Interesting to see where they go with this then. The Mothership cores are out to try and help defend against whatever it may be that comes their way. Patience is going to send his probe down the east side of the map, dodging where those Adepts are headed. And they both just continue to move. They're going to cross in the center.
Okay, he's
Looks
going
like, or
to
just
use,
cross right by.
he's going to scout with his probe. That's interesting. I mean, now pylon positioning is going to be incredibly important. For Neeb, it's very important that he's still on the money with his probe, because Neeb obviously has 2 pylons near his ramp, or at least one of them. So it's very important that he doesn't let these Adepts in. Neeb, are you paying attention? Yes, he is.
All right, blocks it just in time as the Adept Shades will teleport away. And Neeblet's Adepts see that Nexus start in the natural expansion for Patience. He's going to throw his Shades out, but no opportunity to get inside of that base. He doesn't want to go for it. There's a bit of a Sim City around the mineral line, but Patience's probe does get picked off. Patience did not wall off that main base, so the Adepts could have gotten in if he really wanted to try.
Yeah, it was hard. There's a good triangle of pylons, and I don't think there's a likely scenario where Patience or excuse me, Neeb would have found more than 1 or 2 probes. Maybe 2, but that's the absolute best case, and both Adepts will die. So I understand the choice of Neeblet.
All right. Expansions are going up for both players. We have the follow-ups in terms of tech. It's Robotics Facility, then Twilight for both of them. Are we just expecting Blink Stalker into maybe Immortals and Disruptors, or do people go Resonating Glaives early in PvP?
As an opening, I think it becomes incredibly risky. I'd be surprised if it's not going to be Blink on both sides. But, you know, if somebody goes straight into Resonating Glaives, then he's definitely cutting corners, and then he's trying to hit some sort of a timing with Resonating Glaives, Archons, and Immortals.
All right.
But we'll see. I think Blink Stalk is just so incredibly good, especially on a map like this, that it makes a lot of sense to go for Blink here. Wow, Dark Shrine, all right.
Okay, mixing it up a little bit is Patience. That Photon Overcharge is going to be able to pick off the Adept inside of the main, and I believe Patience has now spotted the Robotics Facility. He knows about the Twilight Council, so he has a very good idea of what he's up against.
Doesn't have a Prism though, correct? I think wiping in DT is just at home. I mean, there's a good chance that Patience will not get Blink, or he still get Blink, but just a little bit later. But obviously, if you open up with a Dark Shrine, you need to do some damage with it. Doesn't have a pylon on the other side of the map. The longer it takes for Dark Templars to show up, the less likely it is that they will do crazy amounts of damage. We do see that the Prism is being chrono boosted out now. I still think it's going to be a tiny bit late. It would be so big if Neeblet was able to scout the Dark Shrine or get anything into the main base. But at the same time, he might still be a little bit curious. He's like, why do you only have 2 Stalkers here and like 2 Sentries? Because if you take a look on the other side of the map, Neeb actually doesn't have that many more Stalkers. Still one more.
But Neeblet does have his Observer right at the front of his base. The War Prism is about to finish for Patience, so he'll have access to that. The Observer is just now moving out, and with only 1, he is going to build another one. It's about to finish in his main.
That's actually a sick call, because that is not normal. Normally, you want to make sure you don't fall behind in Immortals. Immortals are incredibly important. So the fact that Neeb is going for a second Observer here, I'm not sure what he based it upon, but that's a great call, because if he doesn't have it, he's obviously going to take way more damage than he will in this case.
Yep, and we have that Prism headed towards the north side as Hallucinated Phoenix are going to go out for both players to try and scout and see what is happening in each other's bases. He does know about the Dark Shrine now, so it just comes down to how he's going to be able to deal with it.
Yep, he's going to send his first Observer to the main, and the second one, and the third one is almost out. Obviously, he could have just gone double Observer because he's expecting his opponent to open up an Observer as well as being rallied across the map. Double Photon Overcharge will shut this Dark Templar down and really not do anything so far.
Yep, so Neeblet's Observer, we'll see when Patience goes for the third. Neeblet's third is being blocked by that Dark Templar as he sends a few Stalkers out towards that Warp Prism and pushes it away. So the Observer can come help with that, and Neeblet can begin his third expansion if he so chooses. We have the follow-ups, Resonating Glaives and Robotics Bay for Neeblet, since he already has that Blink, and Blink is now on the way for Patience.
I still don't think Patience is very happy. Obviously, you hope to do a little more than that with your Dark Templar opening. Still wondering about that second Observer. I wonder if Neeb just made it because he was expecting the Observer of Patience to be sent across the map and hope to pick it off, or if he just felt that maybe something is wrong and he was worried about DTs. Obviously something we cannot be 100% sure about, but what we can be sure about is that the Dark Templars of Patience really didn't do all that much, and that's being shown right now in the work account as well. It's 55 probes against 46. As soon as that third Nexus is done, that's really going to kick in, and Neeb with a slightly faster Robo Bay as well, faster Disruptors on the way. It looks like not too much has happened in this game, but I'm sure that Neeb is feeling pretty damn confident.
He's picked up, you know, a couple of bits here and there from having that, and that worker lead, of course, is something that just compounds as the longer the game goes on. We do have the Prism setting up at the bottom of these rocks. There are 2 pylons in range, and the Observer for Patience can see the high ground here. The first Disruptor is out, though. Let's see what can get done. He has to be extremely cautious with the positioning of these Sentries and Immortal units that can't blink.
Nope, and actually kind of slow as well. I mean, the Immortals or some of the Sentries have a very, very hard time getting away from a disruptive shot. Dark Templar trying to be annoying. I do like this by Patience. Again, he's just kind of sharking around with his army. He's just trying to scare Neeblet, trying to distract him. At the same time, he's sending the DT. He has to be careful with his army, though. He goes for the forward blink.
Yeah, he blinks straight on top of the Disruptor. He was able to kill it. The Mothership Core is not in position because of the Dark Templar that came in. So now it finally shows up, overcharges a single pylon. Second one was killed. He didn't have enough energy to overcharge another pylon anyway. But now if he tries to push up this ramp again, he will not have an overcharge available. He's going to push straight into it. 2 Immortals standing strong. One of them is going to get picked off. Both Immortals focus firing down the pylon, preventing reinforcements as well as any other overcharges. And Patience is making his way up this ramp. Mothership Core is down, and Neeblet's army is crumbling.
Yep, no more photon overcharge, no more robotic facility units, and that is the biggest problem. Both disruptors did absolutely nothing, and Patience is going to pick up game number 2 here with a very, very well executed attack. I'm super surprised he made that work, Nate.
I guess it just comes down to Neeblet wanted to push for that higher tech. He had the setup with the disruptors, but the impatience, he had the observer on the high ground, he pulled the mothership core out of position, and he just went for it, diving on the disruptor. It was the first thing he killed before that fight started.
Yep, we said it before, right? You cannot second guess yourself. While Patient did it. He's like, mothership core out of position, blink forward, snipe the first disruptor, started focusing the Immortals. The force fields obviously were hurting him quite a bit, but at the same time, at least his Immortals were safe. He had a prism there as well, so he could reinforce his attack very quickly. And then I think that Neeb jumped a little too early on the trigger for that second disruptor. I think he should have tried to keep it alive a little bit longer, because he had 1 Immortal at that point and he had 1 disruptor, but he shot at an army that was already running away. It completely whiffed, and Patience is like, well, if that one whiffed too and you don't have any more photon overcharge, let's just go for it again. And he closed it out.
That last Dark Templar ended up being really important. It ran into the natural. He had the observer with the mothership core. He overcharged. The TT barely survived with less than 10 health. Got further behind the mineral line. He had to move his mothership core even further back, overcharge again, and then by the time he got back, he had no more energy for it. So definitely hurt him a lot. Having 2 overcharged pylons there could have really helped hold that push.
Yeah, frustrating game for Neeb, who's probably wondering like, wow, I was actually really not supposed to lose it anymore. Once again, it was not a game where one player was extremely far ahead.
He was in a good spot.
Yeah, exactly. He's in a good spot. You know, somebody opens up with Dark Templars, really doesn't get anything done. You have a slightly faster expand. You're 9-10 workers ahead. You are heading towards that disrupt attack. All these things, they do really add up. And, you know, 3-4 minor things will eventually be counted as one big advantage. And I'm sure that Neeblet was loving the position he was in.
All right, it's time to go into game number 3 to find out who is going to take this first match of Group B. In the bottom left position of Frost, our Red Plus player from the United States. He's Ting's Neeblet.
On the right top side, we're looking once again at the main base of our Blue Protoss. Hailing from Korea, it is Patience.
So cross spawn Frost, we get a good bit of distance between these players. What do we expect to come out of these guys, since it's been a while? Maybe for some of the viewers haven't seen, like, you know, Frost PvP as far as when you think about the old days. Any knowledge bombs you can drop on me?
I mean, it's not going to be incredibly different from the things that we've seen before. I think this is an alright map to play Stargate. I think Stargate is still kind of, you know, it's kind of solid. Like, there's only no other way to put it. Like, it's not incredibly good in a way that, like, you should really open Stargate and it becomes a guessing game, like, oh, Phoenix against Oracle, but it's solid across the board. And if you can keep the Oracle alive, you can be annoying, gives you a lot of map presence. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see at least 1 Stargate go down. If it would be both Stargate, that would be very wild. But other than that, this is just a map where Blink Stalkers reign supreme, especially when it's cross map. You know, it's hard to attack. And when it's hard to attack, you obviously want to have mobile units, and the most mobile unit that Protoss has are these Blink Stalkers.
All right, it's still going to be, even with the distance, all that said and done, the double gateway setup. Do you think that Adept versus Stalker has any, you know, better or worse leverage on this map? Or
it comes down to execution. I think if you can find an opening with Adepts, it's always awesome. And what people like about Adept openings is that it gives you a little bit of map presence early on, just gives you something on the other side of the map. You saw that Patient started off an Adept and he cancelled it, which gives me an idea he wants to go double Stalker now. Or a super fast Stargate, actually. I almost have the feeling that he's saving up here for a super fast Stargate. But now he's like, ah, no, there is a probe, so I'm just going to start 2 Stalkers instead.
Wants to have that option to push the probe away from his base at some point or another, as he did see Patience bring his probe down, and Patience is going to start up that Nexus.
And he canceled the Stalkers, correct?
Yeah, he did.
So what is he? He must be dropping his Stargate then, because what else? This is pretty bizarre. He's going to Chrono Boost.
All Patience has. He has that Nexus on the way, and he just has his mothership core.
And now he's going to start the Stalkers again, just to get that Nexus a tiny bit faster. So it's safe to say this was a pretty greedy opening by Patience. But at least he will have 1 more photon overcharge than you normally have, because he made the mothership core before anything else.
All right, well, Neeblet has those Stalkers, but as far as what they're doing, they're just going to hold that front door together as he has the probe. He's got the resources. He'll drop his Nexus. So it just ends up being a pretty normal build out of Neeb then, would you say, versus a slightly greedier variant of the same build from Patience?
What I like from Patience is that I think he's adapting throughout this series. You know, he opened up double adept in the first 2 games. First game, he really didn't get anything done. Second game, probably wasn't too happy with how that one played out either. So he's like, well, you know, it seems that Neeb's openings are incredibly solid against any sort of adept play. Let's capitalize on that and let's try to get a slightly faster Nexus than I'm normally supposed to have, which would be incredibly risky against like 3-gate Stalker pressure, but it seems like Neeb doesn't like to play like that. So why does he have to worry about it?
Yeah, if he's not going to cheese you or bring that super heavy aggression early on, you don't have to worry about it. Neeblet does pick off that probe in the northwest corner of Patience, but these 2 Stalkers are going to be in a position to try and snatch it up on the way out. And this one, going north actually makes it a lot easier for Neeblet. If he had just clicked it to go back home, he would have probably gotten it at least damaged to a heavy degree.
Yeah, now obviously Patience wants to make sure he's not getting baited because he doesn't have any vision. We know that there is nothing else happening on the map, but sometimes you chase one unit to the corner of the map and suddenly you get surrounded by 4 Stalkers of your opponent. And that's why Patience is not chasing, for people who are wondering.
Yeah, it's an interesting little, you know, consideration of everything that's possible by both players at the same time. It's like, well, obviously you don't want to lose the Stalker. Running around was a good play since the probe gave away that Neeblet had that there. And then at the same time not wanting to chase that Stalker too far in case there's something else. So these 2 Adepts, they shade in, but cancel at the end. Is it common to see that just used just to get those sentries? Okay, actually he's going to force field this one in.
And I think now he's actually going to let it finish up because the middle line is going to be a little bit exposed. I mean, Patience was aware of it, so he reacts incredibly quickly, drops a photon overcharge as well. But this kind of stuff is still good. You know, these are just 2 Adepts in this phase in the game.
He sees the Prism as well, so he gets a little bit more information than he might have been bargaining for.
I thought he was going to get one more pro, but excellent Sim City by Patience.
Yeah, just blocking it out. There's the Twilight Council, Chrono boosting out Blink. We have Blink on the way for Neeblet and an Immortal back home. He's just kept everything together in his natural expansion, being as cautious as can be, but that Prism is going to be a constant threat on his mind. Heading towards the north side, maybe going to see if there's an opening in the natural, but there's not.
Yeah, the scout of the Prism was excellent for Neeb. That really gives him a lot of very valuable information for this phase in the game. He also, of course, wants to make sure it's not a Dark Templar opening again, because the last thing you ever expect after a failed Dark Templar build, which still, you know, brought a win in the end, but it's safe to say that the opening did not work out for Patience, is for Patience to do the same thing again, but you still have to worry about it, so that's why I was bringing the Observer in.
Yeah. Alright, so as far as the setup goes, Neeblet at least has the advantage in terms of the Immortal count by about 1. He'll have 2 before this Robo base finished up for Patience. So Patience is going to go straight into Disruptors then?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty dead even build, even though Patience is playing very greedy here on Frost. I mean, that's very fast Robo Bay. He's having a Forge. Neeb, on the other hand, dropped 4 extra gateways. I have the feeling that Neeb wants to be very aggressive as he has picked up on some of the greed that Patience has been displaying this game. You know, often when players start off greedy, they want to keep being greedy until they are where they really want to be in the game.
Double down on what they've been able to get away with so far, Roddy.
Like once you're on the roll, you just can't stop, Nate.
Yeah. We have the Templar Archives coming in for Neeblet, so maybe get a couple of Gate Crashers out of those Archons to make sure that he can get into the position that he wants to be in. Of course, with Blink, since we do have that Robotics Bay finished, I'm curious to see how Disruptors may end up playing into this, though, since that is, you know, usually the game-changing unit.
Big scout there for Patience. He sees the Neeb still on 2 bases, and it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense for Neeb to be on 2 bases if he wants to macro. Probably saw the amount of gateways as well. He knows what's happening. From this point on, you want to Chrono Boost out the Disruptors. 1 Disruptor can already be very big, but it's often not enough. At the moment you have 2 Disruptors, you could connect with like 2 Immortals at the same time, or the Sentries or whatever, and that would already be massive. And obviously if there are 2 Disruptors, you're going to be a lot more careful with the Blinks as well, because it's very easy to dodge 1 Disruptor, but the moment you dodge 2, you can't just blink to the right side and get in range of the 2nd Disruptor.
Yep, the Stalker's already poked forward. He burns quite a bit of the energy off of those sentries. Popped the Guardian Shield and that Force Field earlier.
That Photon Overcharge was kind of weird. I think he's going to have to use every single Photon Overcharge. Yeah, it sends out the very first Disruptor shot super early. This may open up a small window for Neeblet, but at the same time, our American Protoss wants to wait until that Warp Prism Rise. Goes for a forward blink there.
Yeah, he just wants to snap up that pylon. Force fields the sentries with one of these Adepts in of Patience, and he's going to get the next pylon, which means no more Photon Overcharge to help protect this third base. He does have the Warp Prism here at the same time, and he's trying to hold this position. He just needs to be careful of that cooldown. He's going to blink, and he gets the Disruptor.
Wow, the Stalker count is so incredibly high because of those extra gateways. Blink to the north side there, but the Immortals are just wailing away at the Stalkers of Patience. 2 Immortals do fall in the end, but it really feels that Neeblet still has so many Stalkers here.
He's able to get both of the Immortals of Patience, and as he marches his way towards that base, there's a single Disruptor at the top of the ramp. He's going to throw that Disruptor ball down and miss completely. Blink straight up the ramp with the high ground vision from the Observer, gets the Mothership Core, gets the Disruptor, and can just kill the Robotics Facility.
Yeah, there was only a single pylon there at that third base as well, and I think that hurted Patience so much. That's a good blink though. He cuts off the reinforcements. If there was one way he was going to stay into this game, that's the way. But the Stalker count is still incredibly low. Maybe Patience getting in there with a few extra reinforcements.
Yeah, he's trying to use the probes to help buy himself even more time. Neeblet did start that third Nexus during all of this and go back into probes with the Immortal production, so he's not trying to throw all of his eggs in with this basket. The Stalkers are going to be cleaned up, but at a pretty hefty price of 16 probes.
Yeah, but at least Patience is still alive. I mean, he's absolutely on life support as he's down 22 workers, but he has that base slightly faster. And at least he cleaned up the army. It's something. If that Warping would have finished from Neeb, the game would have been straight up over. So now there is still a tiny bit of hope for our Korean Protoss.
And he's going to send that Warp Prism towards the natural expansion with 2 pylons to cover and a fully charged Mothership Core. Neeblet has everything he needs to deal with this. He's going to drop both overcharges, hits the Prism a bit, not enough to kill it, but now he knows where the location of it is. He can try to play around that, move his Stalkers to the north side and try to grab it since he has enough energy to overcharge again if he needs to.
And 3 probes being chrono boosted out at once. Patience is going to try to pick off a couple of workers from Neeblet and then slowly but steadily crawl his way back into this game. Not really in the position to throw away units though. Lets that Shade finish up. We'll end up losing both Adepts for 2 workers. You know, there are some scenarios where that's not even the worst trade in the world, but it's obviously never good because the Adepts are more expensive. But in this case in particular, because Patience is more broke than Neeblet, I think that's a pretty awful trade.
Yeah, I mean, and from this position on, we've seen that that income advantage has definitely gone into a pretty good way. Having those extra workers, now that the third base is here as well, being able to spread them all out and saturate the expansions is definitely something that's going to continue to have you know, a growing effect on the economy.
It's not all bad by Patience though, because +2 is on the way, and let's not forget he does have that Robo Bay. Now Disruptors are great, but he needs higher numbers. You know, 1 Disruptor is just not enough. If he can get out of 3 or 4 Disruptors, I'm really not sure if Neeblet will give him the time for that. But if he does get up to that number of Disruptors, I mean, anything is possible, and that's kind of a cliche, but with Disruptors, you know, 1 shot can absolutely turn the tide of the game.
We saw what 1 shot did on King Sejong Station, just against the opposing Disruptors, so stuff like that is going to have a very heavy hand in this. As the Observer is going to spot this army moving out, Neeblet has his Warp Prism on the way. Resonating Glaives is going to finish with +1 attack. This is the moment he is choosing to try and make this play to win this game and take this series. 2 Adepts are making their way towards the third base. However, he's going to try to distract him. We do have a few more Adepts being warped in back home, but they will not be there to help defend against this as Neeb makes his way towards the third.
And this would be very nice, even if it's just to buy a couple of seconds. That second Disruptor is out. Disruptor number 3 is on the way. Love the pylon spread this time. Patience already learning from that mistake before. Only having a single pylon really made his defense so much more difficult than it was. And even though those Adepts only got 2 workers, this time he did force some defensive warp-ins, so not all that bad.
Yeah, he has the first Disruptor on cooldown, as we also saw. He was able to avoid that shot. Needs to be extremely careful. The Adepts are getting ready to shade in. He may try to make a play with this, but has to be very cautious. As you mentioned, that third Disruptor is going to come in. So he's happy right now to just deny the economy. He knows about how much ahead he should have been from all the workers that he killed earlier on. That Disruptor shot's going to come in, gets a single Stalker. Could have been a lot worse.
It's a lot of Adepts. I'm not sure if you ever really want to let that finish, because there are so many pylons there, but he may let it finish this time.
Yeah,
yes,
he's going to go straight in for it. The Disruptor shot gets thrown, kills 3 Stalkers of Neeblet. The Immortals are working their way up the ramp, though. Those pylons, only one of them overcharged here on this left side, and it will be picked off, and Neeblet continues to outgrow Patience in supply, nearly doubling him. Now that Disruptor shot not going to go off, and GG is called. Neeblet defeats Patience.
Patience trying to do whatever he could there to defend, but he just lost too much against that 2-base attack of the American Protoss, who just continues his super strong record in PvP. Excellent start of Group B for him. Fun series, Nate.
awesome series to be able to appreciate both the skill that these guys were able to show to each other, going back and forth, and really in that last game, just a great job by Neeblet to, after that push ended, get it all together, wrap it up, and take it home for the big push.
And just great job by Neeb in overall identifying the greed that Patience was playing with, in game number 3, having that slightly faster Nexus. He only saw that later, but then seeing that he went up to 3 bases. Also have an early Warp Prism. Let's not forget that Warp Prisms, do not do anything in an actual fight. And then also going up to Disruptors, Neeb's like, well, let me drop 4 extra gateways and apply some, as we like to call it, light pressure. And it worked, Nate.
Yeah, so an awesome game. Hopefully you guys tuning in, especially my fellow Americans out there, enjoyed that one quite a bit. We are going to go to a short break, and after that, the boys on the couch will break that series down.
Heroes of the Storm. Prepare for Heroes Brawl, the new game mode that breaks all the rules. Rated T for teen.
We finally have a non-Korean take down our first Korean today in Patience with Neeblet. So first of all, congratulations. I think a lot of people did have high hopes for you and you haven't let them down. You were able to take down Patience. So I need to speak to your PvP because you've been absolutely unstoppable, especially in the last 4 months. Your win rate is an impressive 82%. You've taken out players like Trap, Stats, Zest, and now Patience. So what do you think it is? Do you just have a really good understanding of it?
Yeah, I think I'm a good PvP player, and I think I have a lot more fun with the matchup. I think a lot of Protosses hate PvP. They think it's cancer and stuff. But I like microing disruptors. I like controlling disruptors. I feel like it comes down a lot to like micro where you get better if you play more, and I like StarCraft like that. So I enjoy playing PvP a lot right now.
And speaking of micro, in this series against Patience, we saw many cases where you did show that impeccable micro. So many clutch moments with Disruptor micro. Just speak to that series overall. How did you feel the series went for you, and how do you feel about this whole match overall?
I think I played a bit better in practice. I feel like I made a few micro mistakes. I wasn't very comfortable when playing, so I couldn't control my army as well as I could in practice, but I still think it went pretty well. He did pretty much what I'd expect, and I played about how I'd expect I played.
Well, your next opponent will be either Zest or True. Now, Zest, obviously a phenomenal player. You beat him exactly 1 month ago today, 2-0 in the Kespa Cup. And True is a player that you've only played online. The last 2 times you played True in the past 2 months, he actually won against you. But that being said, those are online games. So how do you expect that either of those, that match will go?
I'm actually more confident against True than Stats, even though I've been losing to him. Because, like, Zest, I mean. Sorry. I think Zest, when he's playing very well, is like really, really good, almost unbeatable, like as we saw at the beginning of this year. But like if he doesn't play a lot, then like I think he did before Kespa Cup, then I'd probably have an easier time against True. But I think I'm pretty good against True. Like I'm really confident. Like I keep losing to his all-ins and he plays really weird, but I don't feel like I'm losing because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just losing because I'm making some silly mistakes, and I think it's easy to fix.
All right, well, congratulations again. And with that, we do have our first winner coming out of Group B.
Thank you very much, Smix. Our first player to go through Group B to the winners match. We'll be playing on Saturday. Congratulations to Neeblet. I nailed it there. Welcome back to the Broken Couch here. It's in control, Artosis and Todd. Fascinating map there, or a couple of maps we saw, and Neeblet was able to advance through. And I know one person didn't predict it, but what do you think about that series, Todd?
And you call yourself an American.
Yeah. I've lived in Korea too long, I guess.
It was cool to see them really go after it as well, especially like Neeb on Sejong. I really feel like he was in a position where like most players, myself included, definitely myself, would have just sat back, you know, teched, gotten more units and stuff. He was like, I think I got 3 more Stalkers than him. Let's just go and kill him, right? And he just kept attacking. And it was very inspiring to see that. Then Patience, you know, got lucky with the timing, won a map. And no, it was pretty well played, I think, from Patience as well to go for this. He was a very crisp timing, just in the nick of times that he was able to win a map with. But Neeb just too solid, I guess, towards the end. And
it was a good indicator. I thought Neeb looked to be in very good form.
Yeah.
Patience wasn't making like really crazy mistakes, and we weren't seeing some like new Patience where he's just out of his mind. It was very much so. That's what we expected. Really solid, crisp builds. You know, kind of timing attack oriented decisions. And yet Neeb was able to deflect and defer for the most part. He did drop a game, and that made it for a good series. But I was happy to see Neeblet not play outside of himself or play really low. Because again, man, this stage, it really makes or breaks a player. Like we see champions coming to BlizzCon and we laud them so heavily because if you can win here, you're doing it in foreign territory, but you're doing it with so much pressure on the line too.
And we do have a couple of highlights now coming through here, Todd.
yeah, that was the timing here that's basically hit just before there could have been a critical mass for Neeb to hold on the high ground, which usually is the big advantage. But Patience, like that was clean. Good micro, everything, and then he gets that map win.
So what was the deciding factor when it came to map 3 then? It was the decision to fight into that third and gain an edge.
You know, now that Neeb was a third, and then he walked down and still had try to defend his third. Really, he had the disadvantage of Stalkers, and the fact that as soon as he walked down the ramp, that was it. No way that he actually ends up holding that.
But Jeff actually touched a little bit on how, you know, Neeb won Kespaka, but in other tournaments he's had a little bit of a hard time, so we didn't know. You didn't use that word, but I'm going to use it. Like, was it a fluke? And now we already kind of got an answer to this. Like, no, like he's playing really good, but that was versus Protoss. So I hope we get to see him in other matchups potentially to see like if he's playing that great right now already.
Well, definitely Neeb is playing like super well right now and definitely outplayed Patience, but I think you can kind of see what we were talking about before where he doesn't have a metagame advantage. He's using his base skills to beat them, and that's a really big important showing for Neeblet.
Yeah, and as you can see right now, there is the results so far of this. Just a simple single game has been played so far in Group B, with Neeb moving forward to the winners match on Saturday. So a nice little break for him now. You know, he's just arrived back from Brazil. We've already talked about. He's only been here a very short while. He's now moving forward for a couple of days break. Hello.
Well, kind of one of the things to think about too with that, with waiting a couple days. I know that's not the best for. I mean, there's people like, what? They're not playing it all throughout today. No, but he gets to see who makes it out and who he's going to face, and he gets a couple of days to prepare for them. We also will see one player eliminated, so you can kind of say, okay. And if that's true, by the way, then it's like, well, I don't have to prepare for Zerg at all.
And Patience is going to be playing, sadly, today. In a few hours, he's going to have to play his elimination game to stay in the tournament. So that's going to be an interesting one. Our next game coming up, which is currently being set up, is Zest versus True. Very exciting series. Any quick thoughts, Artosis, before we prepare ourselves?
Well, I mean, Zest versus True is going to be pretty sick. The fact that True has been able to prepare in just one matchup, and he's quite good in the matchup as well. Known so well for Lings and Banelings, and that's kind of like very good against Protoss
Which of
right
these
now.
two players do you think you're going to curse, though?
Well, you know, I wish Magic was real and I could curse people, but you know, I think Zest is the favorite.
You don't believe in magic?
I believe in miracles.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. It is time to head to a very quick break. When we come back, we'll be going into round 2 of Group B as Zest takes on True.